Hello one and all, welcome to Seeing Through Glass, welcome back to Monaco, and welcome back my GT3. Some of you might remember I drove this thing down here 6 or 7 weeks ago after the Podium Tours rally to the Nürburgring. Then spent some time down here with my family before we all flew back to the UK and left this car in storage. I attended Le Mans, updated you all on the 360, worked on a number of different projects, but now I'm back and I'm reunited with the car and kickstarting a new adventure. In the weeks ahead, we're going to be covering a lot of ground, basically driving all through Western Europe, visiting dealerships, collectors, attending events, and just having an absolute blast with this car. And today, I'm probably going to tick over 5,000 miles on the clock. Now, that's not that much, but I've owned the car for 6 months now. So I thought as I head slowly north through Switzerland and Germany, to kind of reflect on the last 5,000 miles and tell you what it's been like to live with the GT3 for the last 6 months. Well, first and most important thing to update you on is the fact I have a new windscreen. So yeah, I got those 2 cracks in the windscreen during that Podium Tours rally to the Nürburgring. One this side, one that side, and they were very quickly meeting in the middle. In fact, when I was last down here about a month or so ago, they pretty much did meet in the middle. But luckily, whilst this car was in storage at Lamborghini Cannes, they were able to fit a replacement windscreen. They've got a number of Porsche dealerships as part of their network, so it was super easy for them to do. Actually, they were great in general, so shout out Lamborghini Cannes. And yeah, now I can see through glass. I think I was just a bit sick in my mouth. Anyway, big day today. We're going to be on the road for about 8.5 hours, so let's crack on. I mean, I was already sad to be leaving Monaco, but moments like this make me even sadder. Look at this, a McLaren P1. I'd stopped for fuel just outside of town, and as I was pulling out of the petrol station, this drove by, a French McLaren P1. I just felt like you never see P1s on the road anymore. I mean, of course they were rare back in the day, but now being 10 years old, I just feel like people are using them less and less, more a sort of investor grade asset, right? But this thing in the classic, I think that's volcano orange, right? I mean, it just looks mad. I do worry that maybe the car's in limp mode or something because the guy's driving so slowly, or maybe it's been collected to go onto a delivery truck. Often some of the transporters aren't allowed into the centre of Monaco, so they drive them up here to the toll of the motorway and load the car. So maybe it's a delivery driver, but who cares? I don't care. I mean, he can drive it at 2 miles an hour for all I like. I mean, it's just so wild to see. Let's see, I'll try and pull alongside. A little bit sketchy because it's a very busy road. Oh, I'm going to go into the tunnel. I mean, I say it like he's going to give it large and rev it up, but given the speeds he's been going, I don't think he is. So yeah, let's just pull out and alongside because whoa, what a wild thing. Oh, what a hero. Good lad. Well done, sir. Right, onwards with our journey. Bye-bye, Monaco. Well, this isn't quite where I was expecting to film the next update of this video. You find me at the side of the French motorway, and about 2 months after my 360 broke down on the way from Portugal back to the UK, pretty sure my GT3 has just had a catastrophic failure. There was a weird ticking noise coming from the back of the car, not on acceleration, but almost off acceleration. Got louder and louder, more constant, and then suddenly there was like a big, almost like a bang, like something just fell apart. The car was, so I pulled over immediately. Now, whenever I shift into gear, not moving, you can hear this like crunchy noise. So something in the gearbox has had a major failure. So I'm waiting for recovery. I have no idea where they're going to take me. I have no idea what's going to happen now. I'm in France. I'll be honest, I am mega stressed and depressed. I had a huge road trip ahead of me with endless filming opportunities lined up, various commitments. And that is, I'm fairly sure, a major job. That's going to be a new gearbox, I think. And does that happen? Am I covered by warranty in France? I am really over cars in this moment. Second time in a month I've been stood by the side of the road. Not feeling it.
1
bright update for you. Still by the side of the road, but outside a Porsche Center, the Porsche Center on Tibes, sitting by the bins. I managed to convince the pretty rude, fairly aggressive French recovery driver to bring the car here. Initially, he was not keen. He wanted to leave me at the side, well, not at the side of the motorway, at the exit of the motorway. I begged and pleaded. I was like, garage, garage, s'il vous plaît, garage. No, 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 s'il vous plaît. He went, depot? I was like, no, no, depot. Because the thing was, when I heard the knocking noise, I Googled nearest Porsche Center and I was on my way here. So we were like a kilometre away. I could see the thing. I was like, please, Porsche, s'il vous plaît. He made me pay some money. I'm not sure if it went directly to him or to like an official breakdown service, but I paid like 140 euros and he went, no problem, Porsche. I was like, okay. But then we got here and in a slightly French way, the service department was closed for lunch, closed between 12 and 2. So they couldn't help me, but luckily the sales team were around and the general manager came down. Super nice people here. They said, look, of course, look, we'll happily take the car, we'll look after it, we'll get it in for diagnostics as soon as possible, but our service department is insanely busy and I can't promise we can diagnose it straight away. It sounded really horrific, like when it broke, it was a horrible noise. So yeah, and actually as we pushed the car off the recovery track, you could hear it knocking. The guys from Porsche were like, is that the noise? I was like, yeah. Weirdly though, engine sounds fine, there's no warning lights whatsoever, steering is fine, everything is fine apart from something to do with the gears, and if you put it into gear, keep the clutch in, you can see, like, super strange. I'm not necessarily concerned like financially, I'm assuming it's going to be a warranty straight fix, but it's just a bit depressing, I've got to be honest. Like I was expecting to break down in my 360 at some point, but not a bloody brand new GT3. And in today's video I was going to bang on about how much I love that car. I was always expecting to like this car, but I've really fallen in love with it in the 4,500 odd miles that I've done so far. But this has been a bit of a bitter blow. I just feel really disheartened, and not to continue moaning, but it has messed me up professionally a little bit because yeah, I had this mega road trip planned for the next 12 or 14 days that was going to be like 6 weeks worth of videos. That's kind of all gone out the window. I did think about flying home and getting the F-Type, that's still knocking around, and just driving straight back into Europe. But first I'm trying to get rid of that car, and adding 3,000 miles to the clock seems a bit silly. And also I feel like the universe is telling me to avoid big road trips at the moment. First the 360, now this. It's like, yeah, someone's being like, Sam, just sit still for a moment. So I don't know what I'm going to do. Seb Delaney lands in a couple of hours. Maybe I'll go and find him. But yeah, a bit disheartening because I think that car's going to be out of action for a while. And do I get them to fix it? Do I try and get it back to the UK? I kind of wanted them to fix it and I can find out. Let's wait and see. Cars, hey, what do we sign ourselves up for? I guess stay tuned. More info to come. Well, it's a few days later, and I'm back in a GT3, but as you can probably tell, not my GT3. And I'm no longer in the south of France, I'm actually back in the UK. I flew back here on the same day of the breakdown. I kind of realised that nothing was going to happen particularly quickly, and I thought I could be more productive back at home rather than twiddling my thumbs in a hotel room in Nice. And Porsche GB have been absolute heroes and lent me this, their press GT3, so I can continue to kind of tell you the story of what happened, because we do now know what happened to my car. Now, as far as I understand it, the 992 GT3 has 2 drive shafts either side of the vehicle at the rear. What we believe has happened is the screws which hold the drive shaft in place have somehow loosened themselves and eventually fallen out, causing the right drive shaft to fall off, essentially to disconnect and fall off, meaning that my car was left with no transmission. So the ticking noise, the knocking noise, like that noise was probably either the screws loosening themselves or already loose and kind of just rolling around within the whole sort of drive shaft and all the components back there. And eventually the sort of big bang moment would have been when the actual drive shaft disconnected itself. It actually fell down onto the lower wishbone, damaging the lower wishbone. But yeah, completely disconnecting itself. So I don't know what would have been going on back there, but all the whirring, all the sort of churning noise, I guess would have been the car trying to power itself but not being able to. It makes sense as to when I put it into gear but didn't release the clutch, why there was that kind of like crunching, because things would have been spinning and not been connected. It's a super strange issue though, because, well, it suggests that really the screws weren't tight enough when my car left the factory, because, well, I haven't touched my car since since I took delivery of it. Apart from changing the tyres, it's not like I've been messing around, changing exhausts or trying to apply a Manti racing kit or fiddling with the suspension. I haven't taken the floor off or anything like that. It hasn't even been for a service, so no one would have got up near or around where the drive shaft is connected, since the car left the factory. And okay, fine, I did that one Nürburgring lap and I've driven my car relatively hard on the road, but those are all the things you're supposed to do with a GT3. So you couldn't exactly say, oh, well, it's the way you've been driving it, Sam, that's what loosened the screws. Those screws should never have loosened, and Porsche are very aware of that. And that's why I'm so grateful that I was able to get the car to an official Porsche Center, because not only are they seriously investigating the issue, but they're also checking all the other components and parts, not only the drive shaft on the left to make sure that is tightened fully, but also that the gearbox wasn't damaged in the process, that nothing else was harmed. As far as they've been able to tell, the only parts that need replacing are the right-hand side drive shaft, right-hand side lower wishbone, which was damaged when the drive shaft fell out of place, and replacing all the screws that somehow fell out. Once that's all done, which should theoretically be in the next week or so, my car should be totally back to normal and ready to go, all covered under warranty. So a super strange issue that should be relatively straightforward to fix, but is, quite baffling as to how it all happened. So the replacement parts have all been ordered by Porsche on Tebe. The ETA was like a week, so we don't know exactly when they're going to turn up, but it should be around a week. And I assume they'll all be fitted and then road tested. And theoretically my car will be ready to collect in 10 days, 2 weeks time, something like that. Only issue is I don't really have time to go back down, pick it up and drive it home, because my diary for the next 6 weeks is just like, that's stressing me slightly, but I mean, I'm not that stressed. In the grand scheme of things, the issue was bizarre, but not that catastrophic. At one point I thought it was like a whole new gearbox that was going to be required. So it's a weird one, but quite a simple fix. I've got a beautiful 911 GT3 as a loan car back here in the UK. My car's being well looked after. It's all under warranty. Like, it could have been worse. Actually, speaking of this GT3, it's been quite interesting spending time with this car because it's completely different to my car. It's a PDK car with the cage, bucket seats, Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 tyres. It's quite an aggressive GT3, and it feels completely different to my own car. This was supposed to be a 6-month update video on my car, and up until the last 48 hours, I was going to tell you that life with my GT3 has been pretty perfect. I mean, better than I could have ever expected. It's turned out to be the perfect road trip car, and I'm so happy with my spec choice, not just in terms of colour and my Pasha seats, but the manual gearbox. I know on the podcast I mentioned that around the Nürburgring there were moments when I realised that a PDK would be far better in that situation, but it's not how I use my car. I live with my car out on the road, and it's been fascinating actually getting back into a PDK GT3 like this one, just to solidify that thought one more time. I've been loving the manual, but I also personally feel like it's the only way to go with the 992 GT3. There will be plenty who disagree, but as I say, for me, I'm so happy I made that choice, and I'm so happy I chose the comfort seats. Because yes, these buckets do look very cool, but getting in and out of them every time, I'm like, ugh. So many things that just made me go, I'm so pleased with my car. And I gotta be honest, I couldn't have told you before my car arrived how long I was gonna keep it. I knew I really liked the GT3, I knew I wanted one, hence why I bought one, but was it gonna be a 12-month car, an 18-month car, a 3-year car? There's a big part of me now that thinks it could be a forever car. The real interesting moment will come is when I get the car back to the UK, because it's very hard to drive these things slowly. They're at their best when at speed. There's not many places in my home country where you can drive these things relatively fast on clear roads. Most roads are extremely bumpy, very narrow, full of traffic. Whereas in parts of Europe, beautiful, smooth tarmac, not another soul on the road, you can just exploit the performance that a little bit more. So I hope that once I get back to the UK, the car doesn't start gathering dust slightly just waiting for the next road trip, because I've already got a car that does that, the 360. That is my special occasion road trip car. I don't need two. And if I was to have to pick right now between the 360 and the GT3, I've got to be honest, that's a very hard choice. By the way, case in point, traffic and narrow roads, there's me getting out of the way of two SUVs. Welcome to the UK. But yeah, there's a huge part of me right now that thinks, like the 360, I would like to keep the GT3 forever. That's honestly my impressions after the first 5,000 miles. Let's see where my head's at the end of the year, which will hopefully be after 10 or 15,000 miles. It'll all depend when I can get the car back from the south of France. This is just a blip, a minor little moment, something that will go down in the history of my ownership of the car. But it hasn't affected my love for it. It's an absolute joy. So look, if you're interested in following this story, make sure you go and check out my podcast, Behind the Glass. Subscribe to that YouTube channel, which is just Behind the Glass, or you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. I'll be updating you all on the story and as things happen. I guess the next time you'll see my car is whenever I figure out how to collect it from the south of France, and yeah, probably bring it back to the UK and then start plotting and planning future adventures. So a bit of a quick, short update video that I really wasn't expecting to make. It's not the content I thought I'd be putting out today or for the weeks ahead. Things are going to have to change, but don't worry, I'll figure it out. So I'm not going to do the usual thing of, if you've enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, because if you've enjoyed it, you're a sick human. You're a very sick human. But subscribe now, turn on notifications for whatever adventures lie ahead.